Morning, church family. It's May 15th, and I just want to take a look at the book of John, chapter 5, for a few moments. I stopped by Costco this morning and went in Costco, and of course, they made sure that I was wearing a mask, and so I wore a mask in Costco. The whole mask wearing thing in our world right now is really a lesson for us on the subject of legalism. Now, I'm not against wearing masks, but also I think you have to do that with reason. This isn't intended to be a medical commentary. It's just fascinating when you go in and then you come out and you see people not just wearing a mask in a store, which I understand, trying to keep from spreading virus from one person to another, but people wearing masks while they're driving alone in their cars, people wearing masks while they're out on a walk, people wearing masks while they're out running or out riding their bikes, doing intense exercises. The CDC has said for years that wearing a mask all the time is dangerous for you because it's not good for you to breathe back in what you breathe out. You breathe out impurities, you breathe out viruses, you breathe out various types of things, and to take all of that back in is kind of like taking waste back in. And so breathing fresh air back in is a good thing. But so there's a context in which a mask is wise, a doctor in a hospital, a nurse, when you're in close proximity, when you're in a crowded place, when you're inside a store, something like that. And then there's a context in which so there's a context when a mask is helpful and a context when a mask is worse. It's interesting that people can't seem to get the context. Right now in our culture, if you're wearing a mask, that's a symbol of obedience to government and whether you care about other people, and oftentimes now whether you're liberal or conservative. And it's just foolishness. That's foolishness to see something like that as a symbol rather than reasonably think through it. And this is a classic example of legalism. We come to John chapter 5, and the story is of the pool of Bethesda. And at the pool of Bethesda, a spirit angel came down and stirred the waters, and whoever got in first would be healed. And Jesus goes, and there's this man who's there. I suppose he's hoping against hope that he can get in, but he says whenever he tries to get in, somebody else gets in before him. And so he can't get in. And Jesus says, do you want to be healed? And he says to him, do you rise, take up your bed and walk? And the man was made well, and he got up and he took up his bed and he walked. And it was the Sabbath day, and the Jews asked the man, why are you carrying your bed on the Sabbath? I mean, completely out of context. To them, it didn't matter that he had been healed and that he was carrying a bed because he had just been healed. There was no rejoicing with him in that. All they cared about was the symbolism. He was carrying his bed on the Sabbath day. Of course, they were angry with him. Finally, when Jesus sees him again, the man finds out who it is that actually heals him, and he goes back and tells Jesus. And from that point on, because he healed someone on the Sabbath, and because he told the person to carry his bed on the Sabbath, they tried to kill him. Legalism ignores context. In fact, what legalism does is it takes a command of God, makes a rule, applies that rule arbitrarily, and then seeks to turn that back around and force the principle back upon God himself, to make God be accountable to an arbitrary application of his own rule. So that's legalism. Legalism ignores reasonable application, and legalism ignores context, and legalism makes some particular behavior a sign about your status. Don't be a legalist. Have a good day. God bless.